Seattle has a way of hiding screams. Maybe it's the rain, always falling, always hissing against rooftops like static. Maybe it's the way the city lights ripple across the sound, distracting you from the shadows gathering at the edges. Or maybe it's just that people here have learned to look away from misery, unless it's neatly packaged on the evening news. But on the night my baby sister vanished, the city didn't just look away, it swallowed her. My name is Marissa Hale, eldest of the Hale sisters. People say I've always carried the weight of all three of us. Responsible Marissa, steady Marissa, the one who fixes things. I used to laugh at that. Now I see it was prophecy. Lily, the youngest, had just turned 21. She was the kind of girl who made strangers soften around the edges. Sunny, curious, scattered in the way only the very gentle are. I remember that night too clearly. She came into the kitchen, her eyes bright, clutching her phone like it held magic. "Riss, look," she said, her voice all excitement. "I matched with someone on Verity." That dating app had exploded around Seattle. Slick interface, safety-first marketing, the whole facade. I barely looked up from the bills I was sorting. "That's good, Lil. Just be careful, okay?" "Always," she smiled. But she wasn't. Or maybe she was, and it just wasn't enough. His name was Caleb Rowan. At least that's what he went by. He looked average in his profile picture. Clean-cut, friendly, forgettable. But there was something in his eyes I never liked once I knew what I was looking for. Lily didn't see it. She only saw the funny, adventurous guy who said he loved indie concerts and mountain trails. They chatted for a week, then he invited her out. She never came home. When Tessa, our middle sister, and I realized Lily hadn't answered calls or texts, we filed a missing person report. I felt an ache I couldn't name blooming in my chest. It felt wrong. Wrong in a way my bones recognized before my mind did. 3 days later, the police found her body in a wooded stretch just outside the city. One of those quiet places you don't go unless you're running from something or running toward something much darker. The detectives, Mercer was his name, told us they were investigating all leads. That phrase haunts me more than the truth of her last moments. It means nothing. It's a verbal sedative they use so grieving families don't disturb their workflow. Weeks passed, then months. The case slid from active to pending, then to cold. I realized something brutal. Justice was not coming, not on its own. Tessa and I drifted after Lily's death. Tessa tried to function, therapy, group meetings, volunteering, but she carried grief like a stone in her chest, heavy and unmoving. As for me, I turned inward, not in the collapsing way, in the sharpening way. I replayed every detail, every message Lily had exchanged, every clue the police shrugged off because it didn't fit established patterns. I kept hearing her last words to me. Always. But she wasn't always. She was trusting. She believed in people. I believed in patterns. And Caleb Rowan, or whatever his real name was, had a pattern. The killer hadn't vanished. He had simply moved on. The night everything changed was 6 months after Lily's funeral. I was lying awake, listening to the rain tapping the windows in a restless rhythm. My laptop was open, the screen glowing faintly across my dark room. I had been digging again. Forums, missing persons pages, old crime threads that smelled of desperation and amateur sleuthing. And then I saw it. A post about another girl. Matched on Verity, last seen alive getting into a car with a man who looked eerily like Caleb. Found 3 days later. It hit me like a punch. He was still hunting. People had failed my sister. The system had failed her. But I wouldn't. That night, something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted. hardened. I realized what I had to do. If the police couldn't find him, I would. I stared at the Verity app icon on my screen for a long time. My heartbeat was steady, frighteningly steady. Then I clicked download. If he used the app to lure Lily, then I would use the same app to lure him. That was the moment Marissa Hale died a little, and something far colder took her place. Before the end of that first night, I had created the perfect trap: a fake profile, a carefully crafted persona, and a plan forming like storm clouds behind my eyes. I didn't know if it would work. I only knew I would not stop until it did. And before anything else, before the hunt truly began, I looked into my camera, recording everything for accountability, for truth, for the people like me who lost someone to monsters in the dark. And I said, if you've ever been hurt, if you've ever wanted justice for someone you love, hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me your story in the comments. This journey is for all of us who were told to move on when the world refused to give us answers. Then I ended the recording and began the hunt. People think revenge begins with rage. It doesn't. It begins with precision, cold, quiet, and deliberate, the kind of focus that could cut glass. After I downloaded Verity, I spent 3 days studying every corner of the app. I needed to understand how Lily had been found so easily by a predator hiding behind filters and charming text bubbles. I dissected profiles, patterns, bios, match timing. I dug into forums where women shared red flags, inconsistent photos, time zone mismatches, too eager compliments. I built my plan around that knowledge. My fake identity was Maya Brooks, age 27, a barista photographer hybrid, just the kind of artsy, adventurous type Caleb gravitated towards. I made Maya honest enough to seem real, but vague enough to avoid scrutiny. Her profile picture? A combination of AI and Photoshop. Someone who looked real, but didn't exist. Her bio read, chasing sunrises and stories, new to Seattle, not sure what I'm looking for yet, but I'll know it when I see it. In other words, bait. To make the profile appear lived in, I uploaded a handful of pictures. Maya at a coffee shop, Maya with a camera, Maya near a rainy window. All fabricated, all flawless. I wanted him to find me, but not too quickly. Predators like Caleb didn't pounce on the first profile they saw. They watched, they tested, they selected. So I waited. Tessa didn't know what I was doing. Not yet. She and I talked less these days, both orbiting grief on separate paths. She stopped by my apartment one evening, dropping off homemade soup with a tired smile that never reached her eyes. "How are you holding up?" she asked, scanning the room as if she could read sorrow in the furniture. "Better," I lied. "Working a lot." She nodded, then looked at Lily's picture on the shelf. Her voice cracked. "I keep thinking she just wanted to be loved, you know? She didn't deserve any of this." "No," I whispered, my throat tightening. "She didn't." If she had known I was about to walk straight into the world that killed Lily, she would have broken down or broken my phone in half. So I hugged her and kept my silence. Some secrets are armor. On the 5th night, Verity buzzed with a new match. I felt a cold ripple move under my skin. Not fear. Recognition. Caleb Rowan. Same blandly attractive face, same easy smile, same harmless beige charisma that had fooled Lily and probably dozens of others. His new bio was short. "Life's short, let's make it interesting." My fingers hovered over the screen. Not yet. If I reached out first, he might sense something off. Men like Caleb needed to feel in control. They needed to choose their prey. So I waited. Hours passed. Then, "Caleb, hey Maya, you've got an interesting vibe. What brings you to Seattle?" My heartbeat remained steady. too steady. I typed back, me. Fresh start, I guess. Needed a change of scenery. You? A minute later, Caleb. Born and raised here. If you want a tour guide, I know the best hidden spots in the city. I read that line 5 times. Hidden spots. The same phrasing Lily had once shown me in her messages. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. I saw Lily's shy smile, I heard her giggle, and then nothing but a stretch of dark woods swallowing everything. I forced myself back into the present. Me. Sounds tempting. Maybe. Caleb. Maybe yes? Me. Maybe. Depends on the guide. Caleb. Trust me, I'm worth it. Trust me. The same words he'd used with Lily. I wanted to scream. Instead, I reminded myself, you're not here to feel. You're here to win. Over the next week, Caleb and I talked. He asked the usual questions, where I lived, what I liked, what my schedule was. I answered carefully, giving just enough truth to anchor Maya to reality, enough vagueness to keep him curious. He pressed for a date by day 3. I declined. He pressed again on day 5. I dodged. By day 7, he switched tactics, voice messages. Hearing his voice for the first time made my blood run cold. It was smooth, confident, friendly. A voice that had convinced Lily she was safe. I replayed it 3 times, memorizing the cadence, the lies curled inside the charm. I needed more than a fake identity and flirtation. I needed proof. I needed leverage. That's when I reached out to Brandon Cole. Brandon and I went to high school together, one of those quiet tech guys who grew up to be the type of person corporations underpaid to keep their cybersecurity intact. He owed me a favor, a big one. We met at a late-night diner where no one asked questions. He slid into the booth, eyeing me with concern. "You look like hell, Riss." "I need your help," I said, skipping small talk. "It's about Lily." His expression shifted, respectfully solemn. "I'm listening." I told him about Caleb, about the match, about my plan. He went pale. "Marissa, this guy killed your sister. You can't—" "I'm not walking into anything," I lied. "I just need information. A real location behind his profile, a phone number, an IP address, something the police never bothered to dig for." Brandon hesitated. "What you're asking skirts the line of illegal." "So does murder," I said softly. He stared at me, weighing loyalty against common sense. Finally, he nodded. "Send me his profile. I'll see what I can do." Step 1 of the trap was set. That night, as rain hammered the windows, Caleb messaged again. "Caleb, thinking about you tonight." A chill ran down my spine. Not because he meant it, but because he didn't. To him, I was a placeholder, just another name in the queue. But to me, he was a target. Me. "What are you thinking?" "Caleb, that I'd like to see you soon. Maybe this weekend?" I stared at the screen. My pulse didn't quicken. It slowed. Because I realized something critical. He was getting impatient. And impatient predators make mistakes. I typed back, "Maybe. Let's talk tomorrow." But tomorrow came with a surprise. Brandon called me at dawn, his voice shaken. "Marissa," he said, "we have a problem." A beat of silence. Then, "This guy, Caleb Rowan, he's not who he says he is. And whatever he is, he's done this before, at least 3 other times." My breath caught. 3. 3 besides Lily. Brandon swallowed hard. "You're not dealing with a bad date. You're dealing with a serial killer." I closed my eyes. I already knew. But hearing it confirmed, traced, verified, undeniable, made something ancient and burning ignite inside me. "Good," I whispered. "Good," Brandon hissed. "Marissa." "Because now," I said, opening my eyes, "we know exactly what we're hunting." And for the first time since Lily died, I felt something like control, something like purpose, something like the beginning. Brandon's warning replayed in my mind long after I hung up.
"You're dealing with a serial killer." It didn't shock me. I had known deep down long before he confirmed it. But now it was no longer a suspicion. It was evidence. It was real. And it meant there was only one path forward. I opened the file Brandon sent, encrypted, password protected. Inside was everything he had pulled: IP traces, device make and model, fragments of Caleb's digital footprint. He was using a burner phone, multiple VPN layers, and a fake name built on stolen data from a man who had been dead for 4 years. A ghost behind a mask. But ghosts still leave shadows. One detail stood out. His primary activity hub hovered around a specific neighborhood in Seattle, a cluster of blocks near Queen Anne, quiet, affluent, and eerily perfect for someone who needed to disappear among people who minded their own business. I stared at the map until the streets blurred. That was where he hunted, which meant that was where I needed to go. The next evening, I dressed as Maya, not glamorously, subtle, unthreatening, the way prey looked when they didn't know they were being watched. I put on a soft gray sweater and tied my hair in a messy, low bun. The profile's aesthetic had to match the real me he might one day see. Then I drove to Queen Anne, parked 3 blocks from the center of his activity zone, and walked. Seattle mist clung to the air, giving everything a dreamlike haze. Narrow streets lined with condos, boutique cafes, quiet pocket parks. A place where nothing bad should happen, and so it did. Every couple I saw made my stomach knot. Every woman walking alone made my pulse tighten. I wondered if Lily had walked streets like these with hope in her eyes, believing in the kindness of a stranger. I walked slowly, letting the city settle under my skin. I needed to understand Caleb's territory like it was my own. By the time I returned to my car, a new message chimed. "Caleb, haven't heard from you today. Everything okay?" He was checking, testing. Predators hated silence. Me. "Sorry, long day, just got home." Caleb. "Was starting to think you were avoiding me." Me. "Not at all." Caleb. "Good. I've been thinking, drinks tomorrow?" A direct invitation. Too soon. I stared at the notification until my reflection in the screen stared back, expression blank, controlled. Not yet. Not until I learned more. Not until I chose the battlefield. Me. "Maybe. I'll let you know in the morning." He responded with a single word. "Caleb." Perfect. I locked my phone and exhaled. He was getting confident. Confidence would make him sloppy. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily, her soft smile, her easy laugh. Memories twisted with images of the woods where she was found, her body small beneath towering trees, abandoned like something disposable. How long was she alive? I whispered into the dark. How long did she fight? The silence didn't answer. Anger simmered beneath my ribs, heavy and constant. The next morning, I met with Detective Jonah Mercer. We hadn't spoken in months, not since I'd accused him of giving up on Lily, which he had, but I needed his insight now, even if he didn't know the real reason I came. He met me in a coffee shop downtown, his coat still damp from the rain. He was taller than I remembered, tired as ever. "Marissa," he said cautiously, "you said it was urgent." I sat across from him. "I want an update on my sister's case." His face tightened. "I told you there's been no new information."
"There has," I said quietly. "You just don't realize it yet." Mercer narrowed his eyes. "What are you implying?" I studied him, his worn-out patience, his practiced detachment. "Tell me honestly, how many similar cases have there been in the last 18 months? Young women, dating apps, bodies found outside the city." He froze. Even for a moment, that was enough. "Marissa, you need to let the department handle this." "So there are others?" He exhaled, leaning back. 3, but we can't confirm a connection yet." "You mean you can't prove it?" I said. "There's a difference." His jaw clenched. "You're not supposed to have that information. I'm her sister.
I'll get whatever information I need." He rubbed his forehead. "Marissa, please don't do anything dangerous." I didn't answer. He didn't need to know the truth. He wouldn't understand anyway. Before I left, he said something that followed me out the door. "Vigilantism doesn't bring closure. It brings consequences." I paused, then looked him dead in the eye. "Detective, you had your chance. Now it's mine." By that evening, Caleb messaged again. "Caleb, still on for tonight?" Tonight. He was pushing harder than before. I didn't know whether it was impatience or instinct. Predators sometimes sensed when their prey wasn't as helpless as it appeared. But I couldn't stall too long. He might lose interest, and I couldn't let him move on to another girl. So I made a decision. A calculated risk. Me. "I can meet for a quick drink, somewhere public." His reply was instant. "Caleb. Great, I know a place." He sent the address, a small bar on the quieter edge of downtown, dimly lit, tucked between two old brick buildings. Neutral territory. Public enough to seem safe, private enough to make mistakes. Perfect for his purposes. Or for mine. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady, like my body had already accepted everything that would come next. I typed, "Me. See you at 8. Then I put my phone down and whispered to myself, "You wanted this, Marissa. Now walk into the wolf's mouth. But don't forget, you're not the prey." At 7:80 p.m., I stood outside the bar. Through the fogged windows, warm light spilled onto the sidewalk. Laughter drifted out every time someone opened the door. I took a breath, not of fear, but of resolve. Then I walked inside. The air smelled of cedar and whiskey. Soft music played from the corner. My eyes swept the room, scanning faces. Then I saw him. Caleb Rowan. Alive, real, sitting at a booth near the back wearing a navy jacket and a smile that could have sold trust to a starving child. His eyes found mine, and I felt it, the shift, the moment the hunter recognized what he thought was prey. He stood. "Maya?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. "Nice to finally meet you." He gestured for me to sit. I did. And as he slid into the booth across from me, leaning forward with practiced charm, a strange realization hit me. This monster had no idea he was shaking hands with the sister of the girl he murdered. He had no idea the trap around him was already closing. And he had absolutely no idea that I had come not to escape him, but to destroy him. Caleb watched me with an attention that felt almost clinical, polite on the surface, predatory beneath. Predators didn't stare the way normal men did. They studied. They collected details like currency. "Hope the place isn't too divey for you," he said, smiling. "It's nice," I answered, matching his tone. "Cozy." He nodded, pleased. People like Caleb fed of elevation.
I wasn't here to starve him. Yet. I was here to keep him comfortable enough to open doors he didn't intend to. A server came by and we ordered drinks. A whiskey neat for him, a house gin cocktail for me, or for Maya anyway. I wasn't planning to drink more than 2 sips. I needed my mind sharp. "So," Caleb said, leaning back with a relaxed posture that was too practiced to be natural, "you really do look like your pictures. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" His smile widened. "A very good thing." A harmless, flirtatious line to most women, but I saw the calculation behind it, the reassurance. Men like him complemented with purpose, to lower defenses by threading attention and interest together. I played along. "I'm glad," I said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "You do too." He chuckled. "Well, that's a relief." He was testing me. I let him think he passed. The first drink arrived and I took a small sip. He took a larger one. "So, Maya, what brought you to Seattle?" he asked. The same question he'd opened with online.
He wanted consistency. Needed a reset, I said. New scenery, new job, new everything. Bad breakup? His voice dipped slightly, watching my reaction. I gave a soft, embarrassed laugh. Isn't that usually the case? He smiled knowingly. He liked that answer, because it told him I was vulnerable, a lie he needed to believe. What about you? I asked. Born and raised here, right? Yeah, he said, shrugging. Seattle's home. I moved away for a bit, but I came back. Something about this place makes it hard to leave. The woods, maybe. The silence. The isolation. The perfect dumping grounds. I get that, I said softly. It's beautiful here. He nodded, swirling his drink. It is, especially the parts tourists don't know about. There it was, his first breadcrumb. I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. Like where? Oh, lots of places, he said casually. You'd be surprised what this city hides. I smiled, pretending not to hear the storm beneath those words. For 20 minutes, we played verbal chess. Light topics, harmless jokes, shared interests. I noticed everything. The way he tracked the people entering the bar without seeming to, the way he positioned himself with a clear path to the exit, the way he leaned closer only when he wanted me to mirror the gesture. He wasn't just charming, he was measuring me, cataloging me, assessing risk. Good. That meant he didn't suspect the truth. Not yet. So, Caleb said finally, what do you do for fun, Maya? Well, lately, photography, exploring the city, getting lost on purpose. I paused. You? He chuckled. I like hiking, getting out of the city, fresh air, quiet space. There are some amazing trails north of here. Trails, woods, isolated paths. My stomach tightened, but my smile stayed. That sounds nice, I said softly. You should let me take you sometime. A test. A lure. I lowered my gaze for just 1 second, timed, deliberate. Maybe, I whispered. But we just met. He grinned. That's fair. He liked the challenge. It made me seem cautious, not distant, tempting but not reckless, exactly what he needed me to be. After a while, he excused himself to the restroom. The second he disappeared down the hallway, I pulled out my phone. A message from Brandon. Brandon, got more. You need to see this ASAP. My pulse flickered. Me. What is it? He didn't answer right away. Footsteps approached. I pocketed the phone just before Caleb returned to the table. His expression was easy, relaxed, almost warm. But his eyes were ice. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just checking a message. He nodded and sat down again. His fingers tapped lightly on his glass. You seem tense. I gave a shy smile. First date jitters. His eyes softened with a kind of fake understanding that made my skin crawl. You don't have to be nervous. I'm not going to bite. Not tonight. Not here. I pretended to blush, looking down at my hands. I know. He leaned forward again, voice lower. I really like talking to you, Maya. I'm glad you came. Me too. A lie. He swallowed whole. We stayed another half hour, and I never let my guard down, but I also never let him sense that I was performing. When we finally stood to leave, he offered to walk me to my car. My heart kicked once hard. A trap inside a trap, but I couldn't decline, not without raising suspicion. That's sweet, I said. Okay. We walked outside. The rain had settled into a light mist, streetlights glowing like blurred halos in the fog. Caleb walked beside me, hands in his jacket pockets, looking every bit the kind, attentive date. Had a good time tonight, he said. So did I. We reached my car. I unlocked it but didn't open the door yet.
Maybe we could do this again, he added. Yeah, I said softly. I'd like that. His eyes narrowed slightly, so quick most people would have missed it, but I caught it. A flicker of triumph, satisfaction. He thought I was hooked. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're different from the others." My breath stilled. "The others?" I echoed. A small smile touched his lips. "You know what I mean." No, I knew exactly what he meant. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. My skin crawled, but I didn't move. "I'll text you," he murmured. I nodded, opening my car door. "Good night, Caleb." "Good night, Maya." He stepped back and watched me get in. Only when I drove away did I allow myself to breathe again. I pulled over 2 blocks away, hands gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A message from Brandon finally appeared. Brandon. Found a storage unit, registered under one of his fake identities. "Marissa, you're not going to like what's inside." My chest tightened. Me. "Tell me." His reply came fast, frantic. "I can't explain over text. Just come, please." I swallowed hard, staring at the rain streaking down my windshield. Caleb thought he was the predator. He thought he had time. He thought he'd chosen his next target. But the truth was simple and electric. I had gotten close enough to smell the monster's breath. And now, I was going to see where he hid his bones. Brandon's directions took me to the industrial edge of Seattle, where the city stopped pretending to be charming and showed its rust. Rows of storage units stretched out beneath flickering street lamps, each one a metal mouth waiting to swallow secrets. I parked 2 rows away, engine running for a moment longer than necessary. My reflection stared back at me in the windshield. Maya's face, not mine. But I, Elaine, was still somewhere behind her eyes, steadying the mask. Brandon had texted 3 more times. "Where are you? Hurry. Don't go in alone." Which was exactly the kind of message that guaranteed I was going in alone. I stepped out of my car, pulling my hood up against the damp air. The night smelled like wet concrete and old oil, a scent that clung to places where people hid things they didn't want found. Brandon's car was there, parked crookedly near Unit 317. The driver's side door was open. My pulse tightened. "Brandon?" I called softly. No answer. I approached the unit, my boots crunching on gravel, each step sounding too loud. The overhead light buzzed, casting a jittery glow on the metal door. Brandon wasn't in sight, but his lockpick kit was, a small black case lying open near his feet. And the storage unit? Unlocked, half lifted, an invitation or a warning. I crouched, pushing the metal door up slowly until it rattled against its track. The darkness inside breathed out a cold draft that brushed my face. I took 1 step inside, then another. The smell hit first. Not rot, not blood. Chemicals, bleach, plastic, latex, the kind of sterilized cold that made worse sense the longer you thought about it. My eyes adjusted slowly. Shelves lined the walls, each one holding boxes, dozens of them, neat, labeled with dates written in careful handwriting. Most men didn't label their trophies, but monsters loved order. I reached toward a box labeled January 2023, my fingers trembling only on the inside. The lid lifted with too little resistance. Inside were photographs, stacks of them. Women smiling at cameras, women on trails, women standing beside cars, women looking over their shoulders like someone had just called their name. Different women, not smiling anymore. I felt my stomach pitch, but my expression stayed still. Training that cost me years and more than one piece of myself. Underneath the photos lay something else, a necklace. Gold, delicate, broken at the clasp. I recognized it because I'd seen it in one of the missing persons posts from 3 months ago. I swallowed hard and forced myself to breathe evenly. This wasn't everything. There was more. A metal cabinet stood against the back wall, locked with a thick padlock. Or it had been. Brandon must have cracked it because the lock dangled open. I hesitated before pulling the doors apart. Inside were files. Names, numbers, addresses. All women.
Each folder had notes, his handwriting again, documenting behavior patterns, routines, habits, pages and pages of observation, and in the back of the cabinet, a single folder labeled Maya, my alias. My blood went cold. I opened it slowly. Inside were printed screenshots of my dating profile, transcripts of our chats, a map with the route from my apartment to my job circled in red, a note written in the bottom corner, potential, needs testing. Testing. I closed the folder before the word could crawl under my skin. A noise behind me snapped my attention to the entrance, quick footsteps on gravel. I spun, heart thundering, ready to see Caleb. Instead, "Elaine," Brandon whispered, appearing at the doorway. His face was pale, eyes wide and frantic. "I tried calling, you didn't answer." "You said you couldn't explain over text." "I couldn't." He raked both hands through his hair. "Did you find it?" I gestured toward the open boxes, the cabinet, the folder with my alias. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I found it." He stepped inside, looked around once, then twice, like he couldn't take it all in. "This is worse than what we thought," he said. "He didn't just stalk them, he studied them." "I know." "He planned, prepared, documented." "I know, Brandon." He turned to me, voice shaking. "Elaine, he's escalating. This," he motioned to the shelves, "this is the behavior of someone trying to perfect a pattern. And he thinks I'm next." Brandon swallowed hard. "We should call the police." "And say what? That we broke into a storage unit under a fake identity and found evidence that he may or may not have planted? Evidence he could claim is a hobby unless we find the bodies?" I shook my head. "No, this isn't enough. Not yet." "But Elaine." "He's careful," I said. "Calculated. He's covered every track. The only mistake he's made is thinking I'm prey." Brandon looked at me like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he whispered, "He followed you tonight." My breath caught. "What?" "After the date," he said, "he tailed your car. I stayed back so he didn't see me. He didn't go home. He went to a diner, parked, watched the road for 20 minutes. Waiting, predicting, planning. He's testing you already," Brandon said, voice low. "You have to be careful." A chill crawled down my spine. "I am careful." Brandon hesitated. "Elaine, I know you think you have control, but this is different. He's dangerous." "I know," I said, softer this time. I closed the folder labeled Maya and slipped it into my bag. Brandon frowned. "What are you doing?" "I'm taking back the advantage," I said. "He's studying me? Good. Let him. Because now—" I turned toward the exit, pulling my hood up again. "I'm studying him." Even as I stepped outside, I could feel it. The line between hunter and hunted wasn't just blurring, it was tightening. And soon, one of us would pull it. Brandon insisted on driving behind me as I made my way home that night. I didn't argue. Not because I was afraid, I'd moved beyond fear, but because fear had a way of sharpening instincts when it was aimed in the right direction. And tonight, every instinct told me one simple truth. Caleb was close. He had been testing me for days. The next move would be mine. When I pulled into my apartment building, I didn't go inside immediately. I sat in the car, letting the engine tick down into silence, watching the reflections of passing headlights crawl across the dashboard like restless ghosts. Brandon parked a few spaces away, waiting for a signal. I gave him a thumbs up. I wasn't going inside to sleep. I was going inside to prepare. The next morning, Seattle was washed in gray. The kind that made the city feel unfinished, as if someone had forgotten to paint the rest of the sky. I made coffee, checked my phone, and waited. At exactly 9:14 a.m., Caleb texted. "Caleb, had a great time last night. Want to go for a drive later? I know a quiet viewpoint." A viewpoint. A quiet one. A perfect place to disappear. I typed slowly, deliberately. Me, Maya. "Sure, I'd like that." The dots appeared instantly. He'd been waiting. Caleb. Great. I'll pick you up at 6? I bit my lip. No, he wasn't picking me up. He wasn't controlling the location. Not anymore. Me. Actually, can I meet you there? I have something to finish close by. A pause. Longer than usual. Caleb. Sure, I'll send the address. An address arrived seconds later. Not a viewpoint. A trailhead, north of the city. Isolated. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed, then powered off my phone. Behind the curtain of anxiety, grief, and rage, something else was building. Something cold, focused, steady. Lily deserved justice, and Caleb wasn't going to slip past it, not this time. Brandon looked like he'd aged 5 years when I told him the plan. You're meeting him alone in the woods, Elaine? I'm not going there to die, Brandon. I'm going there to end it. You don't know what he'll do. I know exactly what he'll do. He paced across my living room, rubbing both hands over his face. This is insane, he said. We should go to Mercer, let the police. The police had their chance. And they failed, but that doesn't mean— Brandon. He froze. I stepped toward him, voice low, measured. He killed my sister, 3 other girls. He's planning more. He's not going to stop until someone stops him, and I'm the only one he trusts enough to walk right into a trap. Brandon opened his mouth, but closed it again. He knew I was right. He hated it, but he knew. Finally, he asked, "What do you need from me?" "The same thing you've done so far," I said. "Back up, eyes, and when the time comes, call Mercer." Brandon nodded, jaw clenched. "I'll be close, not too close, but close enough." Good. I picked up the folder labeled Maya, tucked it into my bag beside the pepper spray, recorder, and a burner phone. Evidence was worthless unless it could be placed directly in the monster's hands. Tonight, it would be. The trailhead was quiet when I arrived. The parking lot was nearly empty except for 2 cars. One was Caleb's, a dark SUV with tinted windows. Brandon's car was nowhere in sight. He was here, though, somewhere. Watching. I stepped out, inhaling the scent of wet cedar and moss. The air was cold enough that each breath rose in a thin ghost. Caleb leaned against his SUV, waving casually. "Hey," he said, smiling warmly. "Glad you made it." "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't miss it." He motioned toward the trail. "Thought we could walk a bit. It's beautiful this time of day." He offered his hand. I didn't take it. He hid the flash of irritation with a smile. We started walking. The trail sloped gently upward, the canopy thickening overhead until we were swallowed by forest. Birds chattered somewhere above. The crunch of gravel under our shoes echoed softly. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then, he slowed, turned, watched me. "I like you, Maya," he said quietly, "more than I expected." A compliment, a confession, a threat. I forced a shy smile. "I like you too." He stepped closer. Too close. "You're different," he murmured. "Not like the others." "The others?" His smile curved. "You ask that a lot." "Well," I said softly, "I want to understand you." He tilted his head, studying me, measuring. "Do you?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. His eyes lit with something cold. Then he reached into his jacket. My breath caught, but he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out my folder, the one labeled Maya. My stomach dropped. "I found this," he said, voice quiet, "in my storage unit. Someone broke in." I kept my face still. Caleb stepped close enough that I could smell the faint trace of whiskey on his breath. "Caleb," he whispered, "you know what I think, Maya." "What?" He leaned in. "I think you're lying to me." I let a soft tremor enter my voice. "Caleb, I don't—" He grabbed my wrist. Hard. Pain shot up my arm, but I didn't pull away. That would have been wrong. Too reactive. Too defensive. "Caleb," he murmured, "real people don't break into storage units. So tell me." His eyes bored into mine. "Who are you?" My heart pounded, but I let my voice crack just enough. "I was scared." He tilted his head. "Of what?" "Of you." He smiled. Slow. Cruel. Knowing. "You should be." That was the moment, the crack in his mask, the opening. I took a breath. Steady. Controlled. Then I said, "My name isn't Maya." He stiffened. "My name," I continued, "is Elaine." The forest went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath.
He stared at me. Confusion flickered first, then realization, then fear. "You had a sister," I said. "Her name was Lily." His face shifted, just slightly, but enough to confirm everything. "I don't know who," he started. "Don't." My voice cut sharp and cold. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore." He tightened his grip on my wrist, but I didn't flinch. "You killed her," I whispered. Caleb laughed lightly, shaking his head. "You're imagining." "Say her name." "What?" "Say her name." His jaw clenched. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. I saw the truth in his eyes, the same truth Lily must have seen in the last seconds of her life. "You made a mistake," I whispered. "And what mistake is that?" he asked, voice dripping with contempt. "You let me get close." The next moments felt both slow and impossibly fast. He lunged. I twisted. Brandon's voice rang out from somewhere in the trees. "Elaine, move!" Caleb spun toward the sound. Just a second, but enough. I drove my knee into his stomach. He staggered back. I grabbed the pepper spray from my pocket and fired directly into his eyes. He screamed, a ragged animal sound, and stumbled blindly. He swung wildly, but I ducked backward, heart hammering. Brandon emerged from the trees, sprinting toward us. "Get down!" he yelled. I dropped. He tackled Caleb to the ground. Caleb fought with inhuman strength, thrashing, clawing, kicking. Brandon tried to pin his arms, but Caleb twisted free, grabbing a fist-sized rock, and that's when the sirens hit, distant but closing fast. Brandon scrambled back just as Caleb lurched to his feet, eyes red and leaking tears from the spray, rage contorting his face. "You," he snarled at me, "you ruined everything." "No," I whispered. "I ended it." Blue and red lights swept through the trees, flashing in strobes across the trail. Detective Mercer's voice boomed. "Caleb Rowan, stop where you are." Caleb turned, just enough to see the line of officers spilling down the trail, guns raised. For a heartbeat, he considered running. Then, he dropped the rock, dropped to his knees, and started to cry. The kind of crying that wasn't remorse, just defeat. Officers swarmed him, pulling his hands behind his back, cuffing him. He didn't struggle. He just stared at the ground as if the earth had betrayed him. Mercer approached me, breath visible in the cold. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. But as Caleb was dragged past me, head bowed, something inside me broke and stitched itself together all at once. He looked up, our eyes met, and I said the last words he would ever hear from me. Her name was Lily. He looked away, because cowards always do. The trial was swift. The evidence from the storage unit, the photos, the trophies, the files, tied him to 3 murders immediately. DNA from Lily's case sealed everything else. He received life without parole. Justice served. Not perfectly, not cleanly, not painlessly, but served. I still walk the Seattle trails sometimes, not because they feel safe, but because they don't. Because Lily deserves someone who walks the places she never got to return from. I don't use Maya's name anymore. I don't need to.
But some nights, when the wind shifts through the cedars, I swear I can feel her there, the girl I pretended to be to catch a monster, and the sister whose life I avenged. Not with violence, not with death, but with truth, and a trap the monster never saw coming.